Hello, hello, hello. Robert Phoenix here, broadcasting to you live once again from Austin, Texas, where winter has cast its hoary cloak upon us. Yes, it is cold, it is windy, it is dark. The final blast of last summer's rays were shown upon us this past weekend, where it was actually pretty warm. Well, the times they are a-changin', and they are. We live in a very mutable world right now, don't we? You know, we're only a few degrees into Jupiter and Scorpio, and my God, I'm digging it. I have to say, Jupiter and Libra to me was pretty good. It was pretty good for me, especially early on, and then towards the Jupiter retrograde in Libra, not so good. I feel like I was channeling Larry David there. Not so good. But once it got direct, hey, it picked up again. I like Jupiter and Libra. But I would say on a social level, Jupiter and Libra, underwhelming. I mean, again, just to go over it, well, you know, the scales are balanced, right? What's interesting, too, is that Libra is the only symbol in the zodiac that is not a human, an animal, or a chimera, like Sagittarius. Because it's a mechanical symbol, right? And it's the point of balance between the lower and the upper part of the chart, the self and the non-self, the other. Is there any animal that would be able to provide that kind of symbolism? No, I don't think so. So Libra is actually a pretty good symbol for that part of the chart, but it's mechanical. It's a mechanical symbol. So, you know, what we saw this expansion towards both sides of that precarious balance, really trying to get real estate, mind share, social credit, equitability, right? This is what Jupiter in Libra was all about. Well, one side says our rights are really important. This our rights are really important. One side says this group has privilege. The other side says this group has privilege. One side says this group is bigoted and racist. The other side, this group is bigoted and racist. This is what the tug and war, the to and fro of Jupiter in Libra, and it's all expanded. It's like, oh my God, okay, here we go. Everybody needs to have a seat at the table with Jupiter in Libra. They kind of went about it the wrong way, though. The whole divide and conquer thing is just a bad strategy. Bad strategy. People need to wake up sooner or later around this thing. Okay. But Jupiter and Scorpio, hello. You know, when a planet changes signs, those first 9 degrees, they're a whopper, right? Pow, you get it. So immediately, Jupiter and Scorpio, what do we get? Almost to the day, we get Baron Harkonnen, a.k.a. Harvey Weinstein, going down. Oh, there's been repercussions, though. Rose McGowan's been rounded up. By the way, did you see Rose McGowan when she shaved her hair? Total Britney Spears move. There's your little MK Ultra beta kitten trying to break her programming. She got arrested on drug charges, suspicion of drug charges. There you go. Let those of you who cast judgment upon your accuser pay very close attention to the plight of Rose McGowan. Because in your future, an arrest is waiting for you. That's a message. It's a clear message. Very clear message. But we saw it, right? We saw this thing happen. It's expanding, this Jupiter energy expanding into the dark portals of sex and power which is what Scorpio is. Oh, but there's more. There's more. There's a lot more that's happened since then. Oh, boy. And that's going to get us right into what's happening with the House of Saud, which is a pretty big deal, to be honest with you. This is a big deal. Okay, so before I jump into that and try to condense that a little bit, just some update on the Texas stuff, the Sutherland Springs, Texas stuff. Let's see. There are videos that are coming out that are unusual, to say the least. I saw a video that was posted, and it was a woman who was talking about the shooting, and she was apparently a part of the shooting. Now, she was laying down in a hospital bed or a gurney or something like that, and she had a wrap on her shoulder, and she was talking about how the shots came through the roof of the building. And she said they were shotgun shots. I'm like, what's going on here? I thought the guy came through the front of the building. And, and here's the deal, right? I mean, this is what you have to ask yourself about that shooting. How many people died? 28, right? 28. 20 people now. I think that's the count. That's the count. 28 people. How many rounds did he fire? Supposedly. I think he fired about 30 rounds theoretically. Theoretically, that's what he fired, right? So he would have had to have had a kill shot on every single bullet. Pretty much. He might have had 2 misses out of that whole round that he fired. Think about that. And how many people were injured? So some of those bullets would have had to have been magic bullets that they would have to pass through one person and then another. There's something just very weird about this whole thing. I've been looking at some of the EMT footage. They're all just standing around. You see the copter. You see the EMT guys. There's about half a dozen of the trucks there, and they're just standing around. There's no urgency. What are you going to do? Just let everybody hang out in there for an hour and die? Is this like another Vegas thing? Speaking of Vegas, I've been seeing some weird footage around Vegas too. Very strange stuff. Like people on their cell phones talking while theoretically there's triage going on. Or it's just, we're dealing with some real mindfuck material here. Okay, I think Vegas was an event within an event. Is the same thing happening with Sutherland Springs? I'm not entirely sure, but there's a lot about Sutherland Springs that just does not ring true for me at all. From the fact that this guy Dylan Kelly just appears out of nowhere. I mean, the guy's it's almost like he never existed. Yeah, we've got about 4 conversations from people that he theoretically went to high school with. There are hardly any pictures of him on the internet, period. His entire Facebook page was supposedly wiped. And even if it was his Facebook page, or even if it was a Facebook page, there's no guarantee it was his. And that he even really existed at that level. Showing off his AK-47, right? My bad bitch. My bad bitch. And then going to his mother-in-law's church because, oh man, he's just hated and he hates and he's evil and he's perverted. I mean, look, if the guy exists, and I kind of have my doubts that he exists, maybe in the way that he's being portrayed, but if that guy exists, then clearly he's a prime candidate to be a Manchurian candidate, that he was completely hacked, completely mind-controlled. He could have been completely warped, with some kind of scalar device developed through DARPA. Look, these things exist. I know for a fact because it's happened to me. It happened to me. I went through a phase back in 2008, 2009 where I was targeted. And I'm not afraid to talk about it, but I was targeted. And that targeting resulted in almost a year's worth of vertigo, hardcore vertigo. So I know this stuff exists. I lived right down the hill from DARPA West, Lawrence Livermore Labs in Berkeley. When I had the vertigo, it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. I'll tell you the story. I don't care. One night I was working on my blog. This is around 2009. No, 2000. No, before that. 2000 and yeah, I think it was around 2009, like late 2008. I think it was 2008, and then 2009. That's when my father started to drift away. So yeah, it was 2009, 2008, and so it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm sitting there working on my computer, and all of a sudden I felt this thing hit me right in my third eye. Bang, hit me right in my third eye. And then these waves spread from one side of my brain to the other, and the next thing I know, I'm like feeling very strange. It's a very strange experience. I don't know what just happened, but it didn't feel mystical. I kind of know what those things feel like because I've had them. This was not that. I went to bed. I woke up the next day feeling a little odd. And fast forward to about 6:30 that night. I go home with my kid, walk inside the house, and I just start spinning out of control. And that's the way it was for the next 9 months. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. I don't want to go into a lot of it, but I'm telling you right now, these things happen. What's really fascinating is I went to go see an acupuncturist to help me out with this. Maybe I get some help from an acupuncturist. And I went to this guy who was one of the first acupuncturists in the United States. This guy had been doing this for years. He was one of the first people to actually travel to China to study acupuncture. He was like a sage acupuncturist. And I went to him and he worked on me. And I told him my issues, and you know what he said? He said, "You're the 5th person this week that's come in here with vertigo." Ding, 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 ding. Do you think something was happening there? Do you think that there might have been kind of a shotgun effect of some interesting technology that was being tested out via DARPA, the House on the Hill, Lawrence Livermore Labs? Just a thought. Just a thought. So, could somebody like this Dylan Kelly, who may or may not have really existed in the way he's being portrayed, could he have been mind warped and mind controlled? Absolutely. There's no question that that could occur. Right? So, I mean, we have to sort of put that into a container because, yeah, this could have happened. It could have happened with this character. And he might have been somebody directed to go in and shoot, right? Or maybe, just maybe, he was there and he might have been yet another useful patsy, which Stephen Paddock might have been if Jesus Campos hadn't killed him, or whoever was up in that hotel room. Oh yeah, how about that for a theory? Jesus Campos. So the rumor is that Jesus Campos is MS-13. And that he was hired on to be part of this event. That's another rabbit hole that we're not going to get into today. But I just want to kind of circle back to the Texas piece and try to get people to think again a bit differently. Now, here's a conflicting point to some degree, because I know two people who are independent of one another who know the same person or are connected to the same family who lost 10 people there. Okay, I want to know more about this family. Do I sound like a cold bastard? I want to know more about this family, and I want to know how how the burial is going to take place. Is it going to be an open casket? Is it going to be closed casket? 10 people, that's a lot of people, right? That's not just a burial, that's an event. That is a total event, and I'd like to know more about that. Are they all just going to be cremated and have their... I think this is a real pivot here for this kind of understanding about what took place. I've been watching the people who've been giving testimony around this, the eyewitnesses. They're completely blank and devoid of any emotion. And I keep saying, I want to see somebody lose their shit. I want to see somebody really lose their shit around one of these events. Like somebody going freaking berserk and real tears coming out of their eyes and frothing at the mouth. And not these fake little crocodile tears that don't exist. I want to see somebody do that. Maybe they've got to up the ante to hire better crisis actors who can actually really act. So they could, maybe what they need to do is hire Tom Hardy or somebody like that, right? Or Ryan Gosling or Jared Leto and dress them up and alter them. That's what I'm looking for. I never see it. Has anybody seen it? You get the fake, phony outrage, pardon my language, like Rodriguez from Santa Barbara, or the father of the gal who, what's her name? The reporter, Parker, in Roanoke, Virginia. Isn't that her name, Parker? I think it is. Reminds me of Robbie Parker. Anyway, that guy, now he's an actor, right? He's acted in commercials, he's acted in movies, he's kind of an actor. He's a C actor, maybe a D, but he managed to turn up the volume a little bit. But when I say outrage, I'm not talking about anger, right? I'm not talking about stone. I want to see somebody just completely lose it, right? That's what I'm looking for. It doesn't happen. But you get these monotone people. Well, today we pray for our community because we live together, we work together, we pray together, and together we will usher one another into the house of our Lord. That's kind of how it was. And her husband is a pastor. I mean, again, I use the analogy like, the ball's on the 1 yard line. You're Earl Campbell. And you're running a wildcat right through the defense. You're playing the worst defense in the NFL at that time. How can you not carry the ball across the line? How could the pastor not have an opportunity to speak at that point in time? He could whip out chapter and verse. So maybe he's a real man of the Lord and he didn't want to use that as his pulpit. Give me a break. By the way, that dude's vibe is weird. Weird vibe. Bringing his Harley into the church. You have to take off your training wheels. What does that mean anyway, to take off your training wheels? Give it all over! I don't really have a problem with that, but come on now. Anyway, anomalies, they're there. Sorry. They're there. Got to raise the questions. The times we're living in. All right, let's talk about Saudi Arabia. What the heck is going on over there? Palace intrigue. Coup. It's a bloodless coup, but it's a coup nonetheless. And who just went to Saudi Arabia? Who would that be? Oh, it's Secret Agent 00666. Yes, Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner went over to Saudi Arabia to have himself a little halal dinner. Of course, it also has to be kosher. And by the way, they're not that far apart. Think about that. So Jared Kushner goes there and has a little chit-chat with Crown Prince Salman. And what happens? Well, Salman decides there's a lot of corruption in this government, and I'm putting together a brand new vision for Saudi Arabia, which is less extremist and more utopianistic. We want to embrace business from all over the world. This is a unique investment opportunity. We want to embrace AI, all these wonderful technologies. We want to bring Saudi Arabia into the 20th century. Yeah, that's right, 20th century, because they're still in the 19th, what are they? Probably in the 17th century, right? It's about 1600. That's what I think. Yeah, they want to bring Saudi Arabia to the 20th century. And great, wonderful. All right. So guess what? Well, we have to. I got to arrest a few people now on some corruption charges. Who should I arrest? How about Ali bin Walid? He's a good one. Okay, so he goes and he makes all these arrests. You know how much he gets out of those arrests? $33 billion. $33 billion by arresting the so-called corrupt. Members of the House of Saud. Other princes. This is his competition, by the way. This is some Game of Thrones stuff that's going down in Saudi Arabia. This is what's happening. He's eliminating competition, he's consolidating assets, and he's setting the stage for something much bigger. One of the people arrested was, guess what? A relative of bin Laden. Yep, that's right. Now, bin Laden's got a lot of relatives. I mean, he has like 40, I think he had like 20 brothers and sisters or something. I mean, it's a big family. It's a big family. But one of bin Laden's relatives got arrested. Oh, by the way, this guy, Ali bin Walad, he owned, apparently, the upper floors of the Mandalay Bay. Like, he owned them. Those were his floors. Isn't that interesting? Little interesting tidbits. Also had a very strong relationship with Jim Murren, who is the guy who runs MGM. So that's another little interesting factoid as Vegas and the Purge in Saudi Arabia converge. It's the converge purge. So, okay, so this is happening now. Salman has now increased the wealth of Saudi Arabia by $33 billion. $33 billion in funny money, in Federal Reserve chump change, I almost said Trump change. Chump change is kind of nothing in a lot of ways, right? How much does Israel get a year? Don't they get like $7 billion a year? That's isn't or $6 billion? I mean, huge amounts of money. And I'd have to go in and look at it. But it's $33 billion is chump change. What's it going to pay for? Well, it's going to pay for more weapons, more political favors. Is it going to go into Aramco? I mean, where's that $33 billion going to go? The rumor is that Saudi Arabia is running out of oil. This is a rumor. I cannot confirm the rumor, but the rumor is those wells are starting to pump water. And it's not because they have tapped the reserves. Like it's not because there's a finite amount of oil. I don't believe there's a finite amount of oil on the planet. I believe that the planet is constantly producing oil. It's an abiotic process, which I've talked about for a long time. It's an abiotic process. It's not because a bunch of dinosaurs died and a bunch of vegetation from an ice age got buried deep, deep down beneath the surface of the earth. Think about that for a second. All that vegetal and amphibial and reptilian debris would have had to be pushed down. What, half a mile? At some juncture, quarter mile? It's really hard to comprehend that fairy tale. This whole fossil fuel thing is a fossilized idea. Let's just get rid of it. Because the planet is always producing oil. It's pretty much everywhere. I mean, are there some areas where oil is in greater abundance than others? Sure there is. Or maybe it's at a higher level of extraction that you don't have to expend so much energy, effort, time, and money to get to it. Yeah. But even with that process, you can overpump for a while. And what happens then is that you're not getting that abiotic response. You're not getting the oil that's always there or close to the surface. And this is what I believe has happened in Saudi Arabia. Because if you go back to the Obama administration, the Saudis were in crazy production mode. Insane production mode. They were flooding the market with their oil. And the reason they were doing that is because they were trying to keep the oil prices as low as possible. They glutted the market and it completely torpedoed the oil market here in this country, especially Texas, which was booming. There's other parts of the United States and Canada, of course, that are connected to oil. See, there's a lot of oil, right? New Mexico, they're pumping oil. These oil companies, especially in Texas, took a huge hit. They had to lay people off. Before that, they were riding high. There was money, huge money. Now, you may not agree with oil. That's fine. I don't know. I don't really agree with it to a large extent anyway, but it's the technology we have now. And I really don't want to drive an electric car. And I don't want to have an electric car, drive me. For the time being, I like my car. And my car runs on oil. It runs on gas, right? Whether it's diesel or regular ethanol, 10% ethanol gas. I like the illusion of freedom that I can get in my car and go somewhere. Okay, it suits me. I'm part of that culture. Now, would it be great if we had not renewable energy, but we had free energy? I'm all for it. I think we're ready. I think the spiritual development of a certain part of humanity now is ramping up, and that we can handle something like free energy. Well, I'd love it. I'd love the opportunity to see what we can do with it. So I am not stuck on oil. Trust me, but it is part of the game right now, and apparently Saudi Arabia is pumping water because they flooded the market. Now remember, this is when Obama was in office, and Obama I think he had a pretty nice relationship with the Saudi Arabians. He let them get away with murder, right? Sold them arms, maybe not to the extent that arms are being sold now through the Trump administration. But of course, Saudi Arabia and Israel and the United States and MI6 and to some extent Turkey, they all created ISIS. This is all ISIS creation. Why? Because they want to get rid of Syria. And the House of Saud is related to the people that are running our other favorite country in the Middle East. There's a connection. I've talked about this before. It is a bloodline connection. The Saudis were Bedouins. Where did they come from? Good question. Study it, find out. So we have this coup going on. It's kind of amazing. Now, what else is happening? Well, apparently, a random missile, which emanated from Yemen, landed in Riyadh. This is straight out of the Israelis' playbook when they are trying to frame the Palestinians so they can go into Gaza and lay waste for about a 72-hour period to Gaza and set them back electrically, municipally, whatever. It just lays waste to them. And so what really happens? Does somebody from inside of Gaza really want to fire a little shitty little rocket that they think is going to make some difference? I mean, after a while, let's say that happened. Let's say maybe the first 2 or 3 rockets, whatever they are. Trust me, they're not going to do any severe damage to what's on the other side of that wall. After maybe the 3rd time, you would see that your shitty little rocket going into the place that's on the other side of the wall would incur the wrath of Satan, and your power would go down, and people would go down, and all. And, you'd have this scourge upon you. Maybe after the 3rd time, you wouldn't send a little shitty rocket over the wall because you'd realize that the risk of firing that shitty little rocket didn't really match up with the wrath that would be incurred. Does that make sense? We're just using a little bit of logic here. So, the shitty little rockets still come over from time to time. Who is sending over said shitty little rocket? I'm sorry, I'm being a little profane today, but I need to be. Who's doing it? Good question. Because when that happens, of course, we get the reaction. This is the same thing that just happened from Yemen. It's the same page out of the same playbook. And look, the Yemenis were not going after the Saudis. It was the Saudis who decided they wanted to declare war on Yemen. Right? There's a war going on there, and we're part of that war, which is another thing people don't understand. We're backing the Saudis in a war against Yemen. We've had American soldiers die there. And probably more American soldiers have died there that we don't know about. We might get a couple of, casualties for whatever reason, like crosses the wire, or they have to admit it, right? This is one of their things. They got to admit, oh yeah, we're there. And then boom, radio silence, any other casualties, quiet, families perhaps paid off. You don't talk about this. You're going to be set for the rest of your life. I'm speculating here, but I'm assuming things like this happen. There's a war. The Saudis are at war with Yemen. That's right. They started it. That's right. And another missile comes from Yemen. Aren't they allowed to defend themselves, even if it is their missile? Which it may not be their missile, right? However, what's going on? Now they're linking that missile to guess who? Iran. Okay, so now Iran is sponsoring Yemen. That's what they're doing. They're arming Yemen. Wow. Well, isn't Iran also arming, theoretically, North Korea? I mean, there's a connection there that they're trying to make. Now, Iran is a state sponsor of terror. And I was watching Alex Jones last night. He's such a war whore. He is such a war whore. He was going on and on. He got a big 38-hour broadcast over on InfoWars. You're going to see the whole thing all day. And what's he doing? That's pounding the war drum. And what he's saying is that in Saudi Arabia, there are two factions. There's the Shia Muslims, right? And so there are these two groups of Islam inside of Saudi Arabia. And he says that the extreme faction, this is what he's painting now, is that the extreme faction was the faction that's being rounded up by the House of Saud and Prince Salman, Crown Prince Salman, right? That's who's being rounded up. That these are the extremists. Now he's saying that there's going to be terrorist attacks starting today all around the country. This is what he's talking about. Yesterday's show, he was saying this. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So what he's doing now is he's linking this extremist group, the Shia, Wahhabist, Sophilists, to Iran. Now remember, one of the bin Laden members was arrested. Okay, so this links us up to what? 9/11. 9/11. And there's going to be stuff coming out around 9/11. Because we are connected to the Kennedy 9/11 Vegas timeline. Players, similar aspects. Remember Gemini. Throughout all of them. We're coming up on 11/22. That's 14 days away from today. That is the anniversary of the Kennedy assassination. So, what is a likely fallout from this? If they can somehow, they being ZOG, if they can somehow link Iran to the group of Saudis who were responsible for 9/11, think of the ramifications for that. Think of the ramifications for that. Do you think that people in this country would want some kind of bloodlust? Now, here's what I think. I think that they're maybe overplaying their hand a little bit. Because they used Saddam Hussein in Iraq already. Correct? They used Saddam Hussein in Iraq already. That this was really the state sponsor of terrorism. Even though there was no link whatsoever, right? No link whatsoever to what was going on in Saudi Arabia. I'm sorry, in Iraq with 9/11. But hey, here we are. It's 2018, 17 years later, coming up on 11/9. That's tomorrow, by the way, right? This was the election. Today was the day, a year ago. And tomorrow was the swearing in, not the swearing in, but it was the day where there would be the new president, of course, Trump. So we're here. We've done one spin cycle. But I feel like that this is where this is going. I feel like that they're going to try to link Iran through the extremists that were taken out for $33 billion worth of assets and the elimination of any kind of competition in the Middle East with Crown Prince Salman. They're gone. Game of Thrones. And I feel like they're going to try to link this back to 9/11, the bin Laden member of that group, and the connection of state-sponsored terrorism to Iran. Just file that away. Now, I put that out on Facebook last night, and one of the people said, Carrie said, no, there's zero chance it's going to happen because Trump knows who did it. Trump knows it was the CIA and the Mossad. That may be true. That may be true. But unless Trump is playing like 10D chess, 10D chess, it's going to be interesting to watch. Let's put it that way. Because Trump is, as they say, on the streets, he's balls deep into Bibi Netanyahu. He sends Jared Kushner, his son, who has very, very strong connections to Shabbat Lubavitcher and, the whole 666 Fifth Avenue, right? Kushner has not been marginalized. He's still doing what he does. Isn't that interesting? Like all these guys inside the Trump administration, have targets on their back. Even guys outside like Roger Stone, and looks like Michael Flynn might be indicted now. Nothing ever happens to Jared Kushner. Yeah, he's just bulletproof, of course. So keep your eyes on this over the next few days. Now, I've been following this thing with Tracy Beans, which has been kind of interesting. Although, and I think she does really, really good work. This woman is she does really, really good work. And I think here's what I was going to say. I think she spends a bit too much time on kind of regurgitating the information. Let's get to the chase. I want her to get to the chase, and I think she's working on it because she wants to break things down, and she's dogged. That's what I was going to say. She's dogged. She's a dogged kind of investigator for the truth, which I applaud. I like hard-working, dogged people that stay with things. And there are people out there, there's so many people out there on the internet. In Truth by Grace, this woman is fantastic. She's great. In A Plain Truth, that guy's fantastic. There are a lot of really, really, really great YouTubers and bloggers out there. You know what I'd love? I would love to have a network of just these people. Get them out of YouTube. Right? I would say take the top 10 really, 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 really good YouTubers. And I would just start my own network with these people. That's what I would do. Screw YouTube. If I was an investor, that's what I'd do. In the top 10%, you could get a lot of really great content coming up. And, think of what those people could do with a budget and some money behind them. That's what I would do. Instead, we have this gas bag here in Austin, Texas, who's taking up all the air and all the resources and dominating the narrative. It's like they never. I sent InfoWars. I sent Rob Dew. I sent David Knight these images on Twitter about the discrepancies with the times for Sutherland Springs. That the event itself was announced 2 days before it actually happened. In one case, another case the day before it actually happened. Did I get any response from any of these guys? No. Did they ever talk about it? No. Because that's not what they're selling. That's not what they're peddling. That's not the narrative they want to look at. So I would love, if somebody said, "Hey, Robert, here you go. Here's a couple $1 million. Go start your own network." I would grab the top 10 YouTubers, and I'd say, "Come on, you're in. You're going to be part of this network. You're going to get some support. You're going to get a budget, and up your equipment, up your frequency." And I would just grab that market share. I'd say, shut down YouTube. Bring all your videos over here. Shut down YouTube. We're going to dominate the space. That's what I do. That is what I do. But instead we have InfoWars, which is doing it and keeping everything kind of in-house and controlling the narrative. Anyway, there's a lot of great people. Getting back to this Tracy Beans thing, though. One of the things that's coming out of this, if you really follow the thread, this Q clearance person, if you really follow the thread, what's coming down, apparently, and I want to talk about it, is that there are sealed indictments. Sealed indictments for people that are going to be arrested. Who are we talking about? We're talking about the Bushes. We're talking about Barack Obama. We're talking about Hillary Clinton. These are going to be the indictments. And there could be other people that are associated with this, the Podestas. I mean, this would be theoretically cutting off the head of the Hydra. Now, what is being pushed out as a result of this is that there would be some form of martial law, okay? There would be a national state of emergency. And that as a result of all the corruption, because Trump has surrounded himself with generals in the military, that we would have a military junta or military takeover of the government. So, is this a good thing? This is what's being implied. And this is why, I've sat through like 3 of these videos, and I've kind of condensed the information to the best of my ability, okay? Without all the, Alice in Wonderland, metaphors. But I think this is what's being inferred here. It's an interesting proposition. Let me ask you this. If, theoretically, this is like The Godfather, right? And Trump is the capo. He's going to go out and he's going to basically wipe out the rival gangs. That's what he's going to do. But in order to do that, he's going to have to establish that his gang is going to be the gang. And the only gang that controls everything. Because this is how this works. Now, there would be people who would be dancing in the streets if Hillary got indicted. There would be people who would be dancing in the streets if the Bushes got indicted. There would be people dancing in the streets, well, some people, that Barack Obama got indicted. It may start a civil war, you never know. But there would be a sense of, wow, it would be a huge pivot in history and time. But the trade-off would be, guess what? Martial law. There'd be a lockdown. Now, I'm not saying that the two are mutually exclusive. Maybe they should be mutually exclusive. Okay? But in this instance, they may not be. Would that be enough for you? Or would you be okay with that? Because on the one hand, you say, look at that, we got rid of this corruption. We got rid of this corruption. And look, we got these pizza gators. We caught them red-handed. They're doing the perp walk. Podesta's doing the perp walk. Huma doing the perp walk. Hillary doing the perp walk. Look at Obama, he's doing the perp walk. This is all the corruption that's been fomenting since the Reagan era, right? The end of the Reagan era, when Bush came into power and control. Would you dig it? But if the trade-off was martial law, would it be worth it? Think about that, because that's kind of what's being inferred in these leaks through poll, which everybody can pick up on, but it seems like Tracy Beans is like sort of the point person because of her show or her YouTube channel. That's what's being inferred. Because the subtext is, if martial law is confirmed, if martial law is enacted, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You have to trust. Okay? I mean, we're in really, really trippy territory now. If indeed this Q material is true, if it's true, then essentially what we're being asked is to trust the process. Because through the process, we're going to eliminate a huge amount of corruption and the nasty players that have been on the scenes for a long time. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about it, to be honest with you. I'm just not sure how I feel about it. I'm not sure if that is a great trade-off and why they have to be together. Why, if that's the case, why can we not just, arrest these people? Maybe it's because they think there'll be unrest on the streets. And so martial law keeps everything under control. Maybe that's the whole thing. I don't know. But this is what's being inferred through those dispatches over on was it Reddit or 4chan? I think it's 4chan. Oh, there's a lot going on out there, huh? Wow. What a time. What a time to be on the planet. Woo. Let's all just take a deep breath and give thanks for being here, because, man, this is where the action is. If you're somebody from another planet, star system, culture out there somewhere in the interdimensional pantheon of planets and stars, the multiverse, and you're looking down at this, this is a pretty good drama. Pretty good drama that's unfolding here. All right, so remember to keep the faith, keep your humor intact, keep your high beams on, and do your best, right, to catch yourself in the moment of the day. We tend to fall into these trances at the moment of the day, and even if we're awake, I had an experience over the weekend that happened. I don't want to really get into it, but it really triggered me, and I realized that in that moment I was having all these things take place, all these things lining up, all these triggers occurring, and I didn't really respond in the way that I needed or could have in that moment. And so what it showed me or illustrated to me is that I need to wake up more. There's more levels of awakening that we all need, and that particularly for myself. I mean, because if I'd been really fluid in that moment, I would have done things a lot differently. Not that anything really terrible happened, but I was just not really crazy about my response. Okay, why don't we shut it down? Stay awake. Practice staying awake during the day. If you feel yourself drifting off, if you feel yourself coming into some kind of daytime somnambulance, right? Make sure you're aware of that. Do something. Get up. Walk around. Do something different. Break the pattern. Stay out of the trance. Break the spell. All right, this is Robert Phoenix, and you've been listening to 50 Minutes of Flame. I'll be back 24 hours from today. Have a great day. These are pretty intense, pretty powerful, pretty transformational times, and you're a part of it. Don't ever think you're not.